What if I told you your mouth is not just speaking words, but training your brain every single day? What if 5 minutes of daily repetition is already programming your nervous system toward fear or toward faith? Most people try to change their life by changing circumstances. Jesus pointed to something more controllable in Mark 11:23. He did not emphasize thinking, he did not emphasize hoping, he emphasized speaking, because repeated words become internal instructions. Neuroscience confirms your brain treats repeated speech as priority input. This means your daily words are either reinforcing problems or installing stability, whether you realize it or not. Most people already repeat phrases like, "I am tired," "This never works," "Nothing changes," "I always struggle." These statements feel descriptive, but they function like training signals. The brain does not filter intention first, it filters repetition first. Whatever shows up consistently becomes what the brain prepares for automatically. This is why many people unknowingly stabilize the very patterns they are trying to escape. The problem is not lack of effort. The problem is unintentional conditioning already happening through daily language. Mark 11:23 exposes this pattern because Jesus describes speaking as the trigger that locks belief into place. This means most people are not lacking faith, they are lacking controlled repetition. And until repetition becomes intentional, the brain will continue reinforcing whatever language it hears most. Here is the mechanism most people never see. Speaking is not expression, speaking is installation. Every repeated phrase becomes a pattern the brain starts automating. The brain is designed to reduce effort by turning repeated input into automatic responses. This is how habits form. This is how reactions become predictable. This is how identity stabilizes. Repetition removes resistance. Spoken repetition accelerates this process because hearing your own voice increases neurological priority. Your brain assumes what you say repeatedly must matter for survival. This is why repeated negative self-talk slowly becomes automatic expectation. The same mechanism also works in the opposite direction. When someone deliberately repeats structured language, the brain begins adjusting predictions to match it. This is why controlled speaking changes reaction speed. Stress triggers slower, calm triggers faster, confidence becomes easier to access. This is not motivation, this is neural efficiency. Mark 11:23 describes this exact behavioral pattern when it emphasizes saying as the trigger that produces internal certainty. Jesus was describing a behavioral installation long before brain science described neural reinforcement. The mechanism is simple. Repeated words become mental defaults. Mental defaults become behavioral reactions. Behavioral reactions become life patterns. Mark 11:23 NIV describes this process with unusual precision when Jesus says, "Whoever says to this mountain and does not doubt but believes what they say will happen." Notice the structure carefully. Saying is repeated. Believing is the result. Speaking appears first because repetition installs certainty. This matches how conditioning works. Input repeated becomes expectation. Expectation becomes internal agreement. Scripture is not describing motivation here. Scripture is describing sequence. Say it, internalize it, then belief stabilizes. This explains why silent belief often feels weak while repeated declaration feels stable. The verse is describing behavioral order. Speaking is the training phase. Belief is the installed result. This is why Proverbs 18:21 NIV states that life and death are in the power of the tongue, because words function as directional inputs. The Bible repeatedly treats speech as behavioral programming, because repeated language directs attention and expectation. When Jesus emphasized speaking to the mountain, he was describing controlled input, replacing uncontrolled input. The practical meaning is simple. Whatever language dominates your repetition will dominate your internal expectations because the system follows input order. Your brain operates as a prediction system. Its main job is to prepare you for what it expects to happen next. Expectations are not built from hope, they are built from repeated signals. When you repeatedly say something, your auditory system feeds that information back into your brain as confirmed input. The brain then begins adjusting emotional reactions to match the repeated message. This is why repeated fear language increases anxiety sensitivity. This is why repeated pressure language increases stress response speed. The nervous system adapts to whatever it hears most often because adaptation improves survival efficiency. This process is called neural reinforcement. Pathways that activate often become easier to activate again. Pathways that are ignored weaken. This means spoken repetition is not psychological trickery, it is biological training. When someone deliberately repeats structured truth statements, the brain slowly reduces resistance because familiarity lowers threat detection. After enough repetition, the brain stops treating the words as new information and starts treating them as baseline expectation. This is why daily repetition changes reactions before circumstances change, because prediction always updates before behavior follows. This is where the 5-minute practice becomes practical. Step 1, pick one verse, not several, because focus increases installation speed. Choose one statement that directly addresses your main pressure point. Step 2, speak it out loud for 2 minutes every morning before outside input begins, because early input sets the mental baseline. Speak slowly and clearly so your brain processes every word. Step 3, repeat it quietly for 1 minute during the day, because mid-cycle repetition prevents old patterns from taking back control. Step 4, speak it again for 1 minute in the evening, because repetition spaced through the day increases retention. Step 5, repeat it quietly before sleep, because the brain strengthens final inputs during rest preparation. This creates 5 minutes total. This is not ritual, this is pattern installation. One verse, 5 minutes, daily repetition. Expect internal reactions to begin shifting within weeks because consistency always beats intensity in conditioning. Repetition works because the brain trusts what it sees often. It does not trust what appears once. This is why one positive statement rarely changes anything. Old patterns were built through thousands of repetitions. Replacement requires structured repetition as well. This is why Scripture repeatedly emphasizes daily use, not occasional use. Joshua 1:8 NIV describes keeping the words continually present because constant exposure stabilizes direction. This is also why doubt often appears early. The brain resists replacing familiar pathways. Resistance does not mean failure. Resistance means replacement has started. If repetition continues, the brain gradually reduces conflict because efficiency always wins. Eventually, the new language feels normal. Reactions start changing without effort. Stress pauses before reacting. Fear loses speed. Confidence appears faster. This is not sudden transformation. This is accumulated conditioning. The reason 5 minutes works is because daily consistency signals importance to the brain. Small daily inputs outperform rare large efforts because the brain prioritizes frequency over intensity. Start today with one controlled repetition cycle. Choose one verse connected to one pressure point. Speak it for 5 minutes daily for the next 30 days because time allows installation to stabilize. Do not measure feelings, measure consistency. Expect resistance early because old patterns defend their position. Expect small reaction changes first because internal prediction shifts before visible outcomes. If you miss a day, restart the cycle immediately because interruption slows conditioning. Keep the structure simple. One verse, 5 minutes, daily repetition, 30 days minimum. Expect clearer thinking. Expect calmer reactions. Expect faster recovery from stress triggers. This is the execution loop. Controlled input produces predictable output. Scripture provides the input. Repetition provides the installation. Consistency produces the result. The only remaining variable is whether you run the pattern long enough for the brain to accept it as default.